Hello, everyone. You're listening to Psychology Outside the Box. My name is Dr. Flower. I have a PhD in psychology, so I'm not a wannabe or a knockoff. I've been teaching college and university courses for 20 years. Psychology is a vast field that connects to many things in your life. If you have a curious mind, you're definitely in the right place. So sit back and enjoy the ride. Today's topic is how top-ranked schools like Harvard stay on top. If we are talking about the best schools ever and anywhere in any dimension or universe, a few standouts come to mind. If you are into magic, then you must attend the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry from Harry Potter. Who needs science and algebra when you can learn all about magic spells? That would be really cool. The Hogwarts motto is never tickle a sleeping dragon. Sounds like good advice to me. If you prefer the Star Trek universe, then Starfleet Academy is your happy place. The campus is located in San Francisco near the Golden Gate Bridge. It was created in the year 2161 when the United Federation of Planets was founded. As we will see later, it would probably be a lot easier to get into Starfleet Academy than being admitted to Harvard University. If you have recently discovered your mutant ability, then for sure, Professor Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters is where you belong. The mansion was later renamed as the Xavier Institute for Higher Learning, as most of the X-Men were adults rather than teenagers by that time. So what makes Harvard the best university? Is there really any difference between Harvard and other schools? Other top-rated schools include Princeton, MIT, Stanford, and Yale. Two men are in a bathroom using a urinal. As they both finish up, one starts walking out of the door. The other guy says, "At Yale, they teach us to wash our hands after urinating." The one walking out the door replies, "Well, at Harvard, they teach us not to pee on our fingers." So there you have it. That's the big difference between Harvard and other schools. Measuring quality or excellence in education is not at all simple or straightforward. Many educators question the value of school rankings and argue that they can measure only a very narrow slice of what quality higher education is really all about. I tend to agree with this viewpoint, and there is no single or accurate measure of education quality or excellence. So when it comes to university rankings and measuring educational quality, there is no gold standard. Times Higher Education is a U.S.-based magazine that has been publishing news about higher education since 1971. It is affiliated with the Times newspaper. Each year, Times Higher Education reveals the top universities with the best reputation, as ranked by academics around the world. The World Reputation Rankings for 2023 were announced in February 2024. These results were based on responses from almost 38,800 academics. Apparently, the most respected universities in the world are Harvard, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Stanford University, University of Oxford, and University of Cambridge. The last two are in the United Kingdom. The first three are in the United States. Harvard University has been at the very top for quite a few years. The U.S. News and World Report, published in September 2023, identified the top-ranking schools across the United States. Number 1, Princeton University. Number 2, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Number 3, Harvard University. Number 4, Stanford University. Number 5, Yale University. Founded in 1636 in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Harvard is America's oldest higher learning institution. It was founded 140 years before the United States was created by the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776. In fact, not just Harvard, but 9 universities in the USA are older than the country, including Yale, Princeton, Columbia, and the University of Pennsylvania, all of them founded before 1760. So certainly one reason for its prestige is that Harvard has been around for so long and has had hundreds of years to establish its reputation not only in North America, but across the world. So for sure, Harvard is well respected pretty much everywhere. Another undisputed fact is that Harvard University, with $50.9 billion endowment as of 2024, is the richest university in the world. Yale has the second largest endowment at $41.4 billion. Both these Ivy League schools have higher endowments than the gross domestic product of several dozen countries. These assets can vary from real estate and stocks to money collected through private donations and fundraising. Endowment fund financial assets are used to cover many costs while also growing the fund over time through investments. In other words, the school's endowment is a supercharged rainy day fund. Endowments are completely different from tuition funds. Stanford, Princeton, MIT, and University of Pennsylvania all have endowments between $21 and $36 billion. The top 5 schools in endowments are also the top 5 colleges as ranked by U.S. News. Yearly costs for some of the top schools such as Harvard, Yale, and Stanford can easily reach $85,000 or more. This includes tuition, fees, housing, food, textbooks, and personal expenses. But this does not seem to discourage applications very much at all. These schools always receive far more applicants than they can possibly accept. But most families aren't necessarily paying the sticker price. Financial aid makes school affordable for everyone who gets in, no matter what their background. Schools with more wealth, such as Harvard and Yale, offer very generous financial aid packages. Many schools, including Harvard, Yale, and Stanford, will meet 100% of demonstrated financial need for all admitted students, no matter what their citizenship or immigration status. In many cases, the school's financial aid grant is so generous that it's really cheaper for students to go to Harvard than to attend their state school. Harvard is need blind, meaning that the applicant's ability to pay isn't considered at all in admissions. Harvard is also no loan, meaning that students are not required to pay back any part of their financial aid award. This is certainly wonderful for students. So many of the top schools, including Harvard, are really expensive, but still a fantastic option for low or even mid-income students. All of this is very good news and makes these schools very attractive to thousands of students from all socioeconomic levels. Apparently, Harvard is really hard to get into, but relatively easy to get out. Once in, it's not too difficult to graduate. This may be even more good news about Harvard University. It takes the #1 spot with a whopping 97% graduation rate. This means that almost every single student who was admitted is graduating from Harvard, usually after 4 years, but sometimes it does take a little bit longer. Other top schools such as Princeton, Yale, and MIT have graduation rates between 88% and 90%. These rates are still very high, but not really very close to those at Harvard. Several schools, including Harvard, have been criticized for grade inflation. Grade inflation occurs when institutions award students with higher grades than they might actually deserve. The problem is, how do we determine exactly what students actually deserve? Measuring grade inflation accurately is extremely difficult to do. MIT and Harvard have a mutual agreement where students from one institution can take classes at the other. MIT likes to joke, or maybe it's no joke at all, that Harvard students come to MIT to learn, while MIT students go to Harvard to raise their GPA or grades. Yale kids also love to poke fun at Harvard by saying that the school has been inflating grades since 1636, longer than any other institution. Some people assume that Harvard is inflating grades because the graduation rate is so incredibly high. As a professor myself, I know that assigning grades is a complex process with no single standard method. It is not at all like assessing height or weight or heart rate or blood sugar level. These physical characteristics can be measured easily, objectively, and accurately, but grading systems can be influenced by a dozen different variables. So recognizing grade inflation is not easy to do, as some people seem to believe. It is certainly reasonable to wonder how nearly every student is graduating from Harvard. Maybe it is possible that some grade inflation is happening after all. Or maybe they have stolen the secret sauce from McDonald's. Or maybe they have an authentic replica of Harry Potter's magic wand, available from Amazon. Order now and have it delivered by Saturday. So far, things are looking pretty good for Harvard, but also for other top colleges. This helps to explain why they're flooded with many thousands of applications every year, far more than can possibly be accepted. The competition is fierce. Many of the top schools receive more than 50,000 applications for their undergraduate programs every year. Although the number of applicants has skyrocketed, the admissions or acceptance rates have dropped to record lows in the last few years. For example, when looking at students beginning university in the fall 2023, Harvard University received 57,000 applications. For the same class, the acceptance rate at Harvard was a shockingly low 3.4%. So Harvard is extremely selective when admitting students. This means the rejection rate is incredibly high. Most other highly ranked colleges in the United States have very low acceptance rates, including MIT, Stanford University, Princeton University, and Yale University. The 11 colleges with the lowest acceptance rates each admitted no more than 7% of their applicants. In contrast, most lower-ranked schools admit the majority of their applicants. While there are a lot of factors that go into a college application, the most critical pieces are GPA and college admission test scores such as SAT and ACT. Meeting these requirements and proving your academic readiness is hugely important to get past the first stage of the selection process. The SAT dates back to 1926 and evolved from an Army IQ test. Starting in 1934, the SAT was used to select students for Harvard scholarships. A year later, Harvard began requiring all candidates to take the SAT. By the end of the 1930s, the SAT was used as a scholarship test for all Ivy League schools. So Harvard has been using test scores to admit students for more than 80 years, longer than any other institution. In its current form, the SAT is a multiple-choice, computer-based test created and administered by the College Board. For much of its history, it was called the Scholastic Aptitude Test, but now it is simply SAT. The SAT is used by most colleges and universities to make admissions decisions. The purpose of the SAT is to measure a high school student's readiness for college. The SAT has two sections, math and evidence-based reading and writing, with each scored on a scale from 200 to 800. When these two scores are combined into a total or composite score, the range can be from 400 up to a maximum 1600, which is a perfect score. Currently, about 2 million students take the SAT each year. The median composite SAT score across all these students is about 1080. This means that half of all test takers got lower scores and half got higher scores. If you get a composite SAT score of 1350, you are in the top 10%. This score would make most students competitive at a lot of great universities. But being in the top 10% is not good enough for Harvard or most other highly ranked schools. If you wish to ascend Mount Olympus to be with the gods, you must have a score of 1520 and be in the top 1%. This is the approximate SAT score needed for admission to Harvard University in 2023 and several other Ivy League colleges. That is crazy high and unreachable for 99% of all students who complete the SAT each year. Out of 2 million students, only about 20,000 will receive a score that makes them eligible for admission to Ivy League schools. Obviously, only exceptional students will reach this towering target. So admitted students who enrolled at Harvard typically had impeccable academic credentials. They had impressive high school GPAs and also outstanding scores on the SAT. And this extreme selectivity has been happening for a long time, more than 80 years, starting in the 1930s when SAT was first used to select students for admission. Harvard's acceptance rate of 3.4% is the lowest among all top-ranked schools, while Yale was not far off with 4.4% acceptance rate. Yale had 52,000 applications and Harvard had 57,000 for 2023. So Harvard and other top schools are highly selective and extremely difficult to impress. And there is still another complication that muddles the application process at Harvard, and that is legacy admissions. An applicant normally has legacy status at a college if a family member already attends or previously attended the school. So legacy students will be given priority over other applications. Other top schools such as Princeton, Yale, and Stanford also favor legacy students. MIT does not consider legacy as an admissions factor. Ominous clouds are gathering over Harvard and other legacy-based schools. As of mid-2023, a civil rights group is claiming that legacy admissions at Harvard University discriminate against students of color by giving an unfair advantage to the mostly white children of alumni. The complaint was filed by Lawyers for Civil Rights, a nonprofit based in Boston, on behalf of Black and Latino community groups in New England, alleging that Harvard's admission system violates the Civil Rights Act. I'm going to talk briefly about an excellent article published in the Journal of Intelligence in 2018 by Way, Brown, and Chabris. Their paper is very complex, but I will focus only on one small section that is most relevant for my podcast. These researchers analyzed the relationship between the average SAT scores for various universities and their rank in the U.S. News Report. Based on a sample of 202 American schools, the correlation between SAT admission scores and their national ranking was 0.89. Now, you may not be familiar with correlations, but this is incredibly high. In simple terms, it means that schools that accept students with the highest SAT scores also receive the very highest ranking. The two go hand in hand and are almost inseparable, like two identical twins. This is a really important and revealing result. The reputation or ranking of the school is closely linked to the quality of students that are admitted. Top schools remain at the top because they accept only the very best and brightest students. Harvard graduates succeed because they were already some of the top minds in the world before they were even admitted. Schools may want to take as much credit as they can for the education and opportunities they give students, but if a school enrolls exceptional students to begin with, It's not surprising that these students will excel at Harvard, and after graduation, they will continue to excel in the workplace. A college's success is much less about the quality of its instruction and more about the talent it can recruit. The Matthew Effect was a term coined by sociologist Robert Merton in 1968. It states that those who start with an advantage such as wealth, fame, or intelligence are much more likely to gain even more of that advantage. It was named after the Bible passage Matthew 25:29, which states, "For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have abundance. But from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away." The loose translation, popularized today, is, "The rich get richer and the poor get poorer." So Harvard and other Ivy League schools accept only the best and brightest students. Those students nearly always graduate with their Harvard diploma in hand, because Harvard already has this impressive reputation as being the best. These already amazing students will be perceived even more highly as they enter the workplace. But because these Harvard graduates are so brilliant, even before they are admitted to the school, they will go out into the world and further confirm the perception that Harvard is the best. So graduating students benefit from Harvard's reputation, and then the awesome ability of graduating students further enhances Harvard's prestige. It's a classic win-win situation. This pretty much guarantees that Harvard's stellar reputation will remain incredibly strong as long as they continue to select the best and brightest applicants. Harvard does have a few unmistakable advantages. Its $51 billion endowment makes it the richest university in the world. And although Harvard has a huge sticker price, it provides incredibly generous aid packages to all students with demonstrated need. On the downside, Harvard is extremely selective with the lowest acceptance rate in the nation. You must have test scores in the top 1% or else come from a legacy family. Without a doubt, students attending Harvard will get a pretty good education, but you can get courses just as good or better pretty much anywhere. And for sure, students are learning because they are admitted already having a high degree of intelligence, motivation, and skill. But Harvard certainly doesn't have a secret sauce or source of knowledge and information that no other school has. All knowledge is equally available to all schools. There is only one thing that Harvard students get that they cannot ever get from anywhere else, and that is a Harvard degree. And maybe snow in April. Well, all good things must come to an end, including this podcast. But in the words of the Terminator, I'll be back. And I hope you will too. Okay, folks, it's all over for today. We're finished. We reached the end. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. I will miss you so very much. The Matthew Effect was a term coined